Welcome to There Is a Method to the Madness. My name is Maxwell, and I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I am the owner of Maxwell's fitness programs, and I've been in business since 1994. The purpose of this podcast is to get to the real deal of what really works, and most importantly, why things work. Hence the name, There Is a Method to the Madness. Before I get to today's show, I want to thank Jonathan and Lynn Gilden of the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They are committed to providing the highest level of customer service in home sales. Why don't you give them a shout and figure out what your home is worth? 386-451-2412. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Rob here to talk about some fitness today. Hope everybody's doing well. I want to remind everybody to please subscribe when you get these podcasts. Maybe somebody sends them to you, maybe I send them to you. But if you'd hit the subscribe button in the top right-hand corner, whether you're listening on Apple or Spotify or something else, it is greatly appreciated. And if you hear something you really like, if you want to try to maybe help somebody get motivated to exercise, send it to them. I just got off the phone, FaceTime with a remote client that I have, and we finished up our session talking about that, how it really is just so much about the accountability partner. So many people just need somebody to help them to do it. So sometimes passing stuff on is a way that we can do that. All right. So speaking of that, there is this balance between trying to help, but also realizing that if we try to help too much, we can kind of move somebody away from their motivation. So let's talk about that a little bit today, because, when we tend to get motivated, when we tend to become into it ourselves, which is a good thing, we carry that passion around, and then we want everybody to feel it too. So it comes out of a good place. But the problem is it doesn't always work. One of my favorite quotes by President John F. Kennedy is, "The time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining." I mean, isn't that pretty cool? And isn't that so true? I mean, God, that hits home for us here in Florida with the hurricanes, right? So, we can just picture that now, man. Trying to repair something when the storm is still going is not going to happen. But what does that mean in the exercise world? So, sarcopenia is age-related muscle mass loss. And it begins to happen in the 30s for most people. It really accelerates as we get older. In our 50s, it takes a big jump. In our 60s, an even bigger jump. Basically what it means is that if we don't use it, we're going to lose it. That's all sarcopenia really is, because studies have also found that if you maintain your exercise program, or maybe you never had one in your teens because you didn't need it because you were maybe playing baseball or playing volleyball, or you were surfing, or you were riding your bike to school, or you're doing all these things you did. We all know those people that, never really technically exercised in high school. Maybe they played sports, and maybe in their 20s there was those that hit the gym a lot and worked out in college, or those that, hit the gym after work in their 20s. And there were some people that didn't do much of anything, but they just naturally stayed fit. Well, those are the 20s, and got hormones on your side, you got youth on your side, you got all these great things on your side. And then, something happens to a lot of people around that age. They begin to get into their full-time jobs, their adult jobs, so to say, start having families maybe. And a lot of the self-care, and maybe there never was self-care, maybe you just had youth on your side, as I said, but a lot of that just gets pushed aside. I was a big workout guy in college because I loved it, But I know a lot of people were not. And a lot of people didn't come to it till afterwards. I mean, we've all heard of the famous freshman 15 or freshman 20. And I guess nowadays people are saying freshman 30 because people are putting more weight on than they used to, which may or may not be true. But, why does this happen? Well, I mean, people start moving less for the first time in their lives. Most of them, not everybody. And people start eating more, whether it just be because there's more available. Maybe where you go to college has cafeterias with a lot of food. Maybe there is some anxiety issues going on that force people, not force, but, help people to eat more, assist in people eating more. Maybe there's social pressure, maybe there's depression, who the heck knows? But a lot of people do gain weight during the college time, right? And people are not exercising as much. So, fast forward into more of the adult life when people then come out of college or come out of trade school or come out of whatever they're doing and start their jobs, that becomes the big focus. It's kind of like the trend we've been on essentially just before World War II. It's like, well, that's the age of you go to work, you work for 20 or 30 years, 30, 40 years, whatever, and then you retire. Now, what happens is a lot of people quit their physical movement. I mean, it's just very natural. And what we're seeing now is the epidemic of that. We've been seeing it for a while. This is not anything new. The obesity crisis is worse now than ever. But as far as we seeing people not really exercise and losing their muscle mass, I mean, I'd have to look at the statistics to be sure, but I would imagine it might actually be a little bit better now because people are going to the gym now later in life far more than they ever have. Thank God. I mean, we see such a motivated clientele with people over 60. They're really, really, really anxious to keep all the muscle on their body that they can. So that's a beautiful thing. But what happens in between is a lot of people don't do it, right? So go back to Kennedy's words. It's like, the time to fix that roof is before it rains. Unfortunately, how do we get that message to people that are just approaching that adulthood, right? How do we get them to understand that this is the time to start making sure that that roof doesn't leak? Because again, sarcopenia is age-related muscle mass loss, and mostly because we don't use the muscles anymore. Use it or lose it. Studies have shown that if we strength train, we will maintain almost all of our muscle mass. Not complete all of it, but most of it. And then if we even pick up working out, we're going to regain muscle mass. All right. So we definitely can do it. So we know strength training is the way to do this, and other forms of exercise, cycling, walking, which will also increase the musculature of the lower body as well. So we know that exercise will keep muscle on the body and it will keep muscle from atrophying. So that's very, very critical. How do you get a population of people that don't necessarily believe that yet to do it? How do you get a population of people that really need to start working on that roof when they're looking at themselves and going, I'm absolutely fine? Well, that's the age-old question. And it's really, really hard. And I'm going to do the best to try to give you some answers. I had a discussion with a client today, as he was leaving, he was talking about, I just starting to see, a friend of mine super motivated because I'm getting motivated, and, I want to jump in and start telling them what they should start to do. But I'm afraid if I push too hard, it's no longer going to be their idea and they're not going to do it. And I looked at him, I said, you are absolutely right. I mean, that is what's going to happen. So for those of us that are motivated and see the way and understand the way, it's extremely frustrating to watch other people not get it, right? It is. It's very hard. And you can imagine in my industry, with what I do, and I see it, I mean, gosh, I could walk around Publix all day and be like, if you just did some posterior deltoid work, you wouldn't have those rounded shoulders when you're pushing that golf cart. Yeah, they're pushing their golf cart in Publix. You wouldn't have that issue if you're pushing your shopping cart if you actually trained your rhomboids at the gym. I mean, that would go over so well, right? I mean, that's one of my benign examples right there. I mean, you can imagine how I can come up with worse scenarios where I end up like getting arrested in Publix, right? So can't do it, right? And when I see like Facebook friends, we all have Facebook friends and probably only 5% of them are really friends, but we have these acquaintances, these people we see every day maybe, and they do nothing but complain about their health and these kinds of problems. And, oh man, no, I don't think I was ever dumb enough to make a reply comment to somebody telling them what they should do. I think I've had enough common sense not to do that, but I see other people do it. And man, it's like smacking a hornet's nest. I mean, I don't know why people do it. Like, I don't really know why people complain on social media. I think people really, really think that people are more interested than they are. I don't know why they do it. I don't. But I also know that me giving them solutions, number one, isn't really what they're looking for. Most of the time, people are looking for attention. And number two, it's not going to do any good. So you can imagine in my field how tough it is, right? And it's even hard for me when it's a legitimate ask of me, which is, hey, do you think you can talk to my son? He's at the University of Florida, and I think now's the time he needs to get busy. And I'm always like, oh, God, no. And so there's your answer right there. No, like the best we can do is be good examples. That's the best we can do. I mean, I do a podcast, so, maybe an interested kid might be coming across a health and fitness podcast because he sees one of the titles that, a clickbait title that I rarely ever use. And when I do, it's kind of a joke. And I do it on purpose. And a friend of mine who works in that industry will say, oh, nice clickbait. Hardly ever do it. But a clickbait would be, I think you probably understand, but it would be something like great butt now, one of those titles. And people will be like, oh man, let me click on that. Or better sex tomorrow. People will be like, oh man, let me hear this, So that's clickbait, right? But let's just say I have one on there that says something like great arms now. Okay, so maybe there's this 25-year-old scrolling through the health and fitness section of podcasts and that one pops up and he listens to it. Then he starts listening to it. Then he hears about preventative medicine and how to take care of himself now. So when he's 60, he can enjoy more of his life and so on and so on. I mean, that's the only thing we can do. That's what I do. I send the message out there for the general population to understand. And then hopefully, the universe will deliver it where it is needed to go. But I can't control the rest, and neither can you. We cannot make younger people, older people, or whatever people do anything that we think they should do. It is not going to happen. For anybody that's had any experience themselves or with friends that have belonged to different 12-step groups like AA or NA or FA or, OA or, whatever, workaholics. I know actually a couple of people that have done that too. I mean, they always say that they're a program of attraction versus promotion. And I just think that's so true, number one, because we also know those recovery people sometimes that are recently recovered and they've had a track record of relapsing, but they're recently recovered. And look, I work with this industry, okay? I'm not making fun of that at all. It's common and it's sad, but there are people that relapse frequently. And then when they're not drinking, they're kind of like trying to convert everybody else. And so many people with more experience of sobriety would say, hey, take a step back. And, there's anonymity for reason, which means, keep all of that to yourself. And it's not because you're embarrassed. It's because it's the better way to go through things. Because then if you relapse and everybody knows what you've been doing, now they're going to fault the program. So that's really what anonymity is. I just maybe taught you something, but promoting it, pushing it as a way never works. You have to be the example that you want others to be. You just have to be that example. And then if and when somebody's ready, maybe they are 30 and maybe they are starting to see how this is going to go for them in 4 or 5 years, 10 years, 11, 20 years, whatever. Maybe they'll say, hey, I've noticed you've always stayed in shape. What do you do? I mean, that is the very best thing we can do. We can be role models. You can't make anybody do something that they're not ready to do. You can only be a role model for exactly what you believe in, what you love. You can just practice it every day. Be it if somebody comes up to you and asks you questions, that's what I do. I mean, I don't say a word to anybody online. If somebody asks me a specific question, I'll absolutely answer them. I like that, actually. If somebody does happen to get to know me a little bit, I use Publix a lot as an example just because my daughter works there. So, I'm one of those dads that likes to go where your kid is, so I'll go in there sometimes. So I get to know a lot of the different people. Plus I, worked there when I was younger too. So I think it's a good store, but that's neither here nor there. But if some of the kids, college kids get to know me, some of my daughter's friends, and they'll say, hey, Mr. Maxwell, how do I get arms like that? And I'll sit there and talk to them because that's an invitation. But if I haven't been invited, I'm not going to insert my opinion. I can have an opinion about whatever I want, but you know what? That doesn't mean I get to express it, right? Or I can express it and it's going to not go over very well. So, we all have to remember that, So what do we do about the roof? Well, here's the deal. If the roof is leaking and somebody comes in and asks you to help them, well, then help them fix the roof. But until then, you just got to be the example. Thank you for listening to today's program. I ask you to please follow the show wherever you get your podcasts, and please select automatic download because that really helps the show. Now I want to thank Overhead Door of Daytona Beach, the area's premier garage door company. They have the best product. They have the best service. I personally vouch for Jeff and Zach Hawk, the owners. They are great people with a great company. If you have any garage door needs, please give them a shout at 386-222-3165.